as humans, we must evolve in order for us to reach our full potential. And in that evolution, we must choose to release the old to be able to embrace the new. But when you realize that who you're stepping into in a new is actually who you were always meant to be, it's not very new, it's actually very ancient.
What was it like to reconnect with your heritage, your culture, and how did that maybe fortify whether it's your message or the way that you show up in the world?
Because of the history of Americanization in Hawaii. I do not blame America, but it is America who is responsible. I don't blame because it's our personal own responsibility to choose our path. The American culture is cultureless. It built its culture around business, around military, and around, I guess you can say, a democracy. It built its culture around those three things. And then you can maybe add in at the foundation, the church and Christianity. So a lot of the roots of American culture is based on Christianity, on capitalism. But in its root, if you look at the history, it's also built on colonial oppression. And then, if you look at people of the Pacific, you really look at people of the heart. But I can resonate if they get this much. They can be up here, but it's up here in correlation to their heart center. Mm-hmm. If it's not, that's what oftentimes brings division, because it's the heart people that push for unity.
Welcome to another episode of the Embracing Human podcast. I am your host, Scott Stone, and today I'm here with a very special guest, a ambassador of aloha, a educator of all things Hawaii, and a Hawaii creative, the son of Oahu, Elijah Kala McShane. Thank you for being on the show.
Aloha, aloha. It's beautiful to be here, to give and to share and to live aloha, and just to continue to serve, brother. Yeah, I just want to start things off on how we start things off in Hawaii, in prayer, in protocol, and in the unity of breath. I always emphasize in our circles and our spaces that we host and facilitate that. If you look around the world, and even here in Hawaii, we got people from all different paths of life, from every which background, homelands and continents. But the one thing that unifies us is our breath. And in our breath is an expression of our spirit, and it's an expression of our being on mana. And so as we start things off, we always unify everybody in breath. Each time you hear Hanu, please take a deep breath. When you hear Ha, you can exhale. These really three help us all to be reconnected and to be reminded of our three main principles that is in the way of aloha, which is aloha aina, aloha akua, and aloha kanaka, which is to love land, to love our space, love our home, love our place, to love spirit, to love all of our ancestors, all the aumakua, all the spiritual guides, and to love one another, aloha kanaka. And this is all rooted in our understanding of aloha, that if we were to ask the spirit of the one creator, what is the one thing that would make him proud, I guess, him, her, it, whatever you want to call it, I can for sure say to love one another, and to love creation, to love the earth, and to love the ones that have come before us. Yeah. So I'm going to unify us in breath, and I'll call forth our kupuna in this oli, which is called Eulu, and it is in the words of an amazing, iconic kumu, Lake, who actually started our Hawaiian culture program at St. Louis High School. And this oli, in his words, it calls forth the uncountable, infinite expressions and manifestations of deity in the Hawaiian universe. Calls forth all the levels, all the lehu lehu, all the expansive expressions of the one source, and the embodiments of all of the gods of Hawaii in our environment, above and below. So, Hanu. Ah. Aloha aina. Hanu. Ah. Aloha akua. Hanu. Ah. Aloha kanaka. E ulu, Tini o ke a kua. Urani me kanalu. Ulu ya lau kwa me gai. Meia no i ko huahu. Ia ka waila. I vai ola. I ola no. E o ke akua. E na akua, na aumakua, me na kupuna. The one divine source. To the gods of Hawaii, o Kane, Kanaloa, Alono, and Ku. And to the many embodiments of our akua, our aumakua, all the protectors and guardians of our families, our ohana, and to our kupuna, all of the ancestors and elders that have walked before us. We just mahalo you for this time, for this space, for this moment, and for healing blessings upon these conversations. To all the listeners, to be touched, to be blessed, to be inspired, to be empowered, to be all they can be in aloha. And just for the goodness, kia kua, for the goodness. E homai ka mana, e homai ka ike, e homai ka kiaka mai, e homai ka pono. We just ask you for the wisdom, for insight, for alignment in all that we do, for all of humanity, from Hawaii and beyond. In the beautiful name of our home, Hawaii, e olanu. Amen. Amen.
Thank you for that. It was beautiful. Yeah. Oof. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for this. You know, I've been following your content for a while, surely since I got to the islands, and you know, we met each other at this music and food experience, and you know, just to get to have you on the show is a real blessing and treat. So I just want to thank you first and foremost for taking
Hey,
the time.
bro. Hey, bro. I appreciate you being inspired, yeah, to approach me, and to plant the seed, my brother. I come from one perspective where if a person is kind, if a person is humble, if a person has peace and love in their heart, to like speak and to ask and request, I try to do my best to meet. It's not always in alignment with people, not always in alignment, but when I can feel the resonance, it's a good opportunity to spread the mana, my brother. I love the shirt, by the way, bro. The shirt is
Thank
good.
you.
Wow,
Thank
that
you.
bugger bring me back to high school in my daddy's time, 1983.
Okay. Right. Okay. All right. Amazing. Yeah, no, I really love what your platform stands for and what you're up to. And that was the big reason for the request is, you know, I came to Hawaii. I was invited here by a local brother to support him through, you know, the passing of his mother and the ceremony of grief. And ever since then, the island has welcomed me with open arms, and I have a lot of people that want to come visit. And that was something I really wanted to dive into the topics with you is coming to the islands and doing it in a good way and living pono and aloha and all that stuff. And so, um, I just love to jump in and first and foremost, just understanding, you know, who is the son of Oahu, and what does his platform stand for?
Good enough, my brother. Our plan and our inspiration for this platform, which really was birthed back in 2020, just right before COVID. Well, just in the middle of COVID, actually. I was in a state of my life where I was identifying the next stage of my walk. I guess you can say highest purpose for how to serve with all the gifts that I've been given. As everybody, we all go through a process of evolution. As humans, we must evolve in order for us to reach our full potential. And in that evolution, we must choose to release the old to be able to embrace the new. And in that's a challenge for a lot of people. And for me, I've been an evolving human, and embracing human, but in my core, I've always been the same. But in how I relate to the world, how I serve, I had to be willing to leave the old behind and to step into a new. But when you realize that who you're stepping into in a new is actually who you were always meant to be, is not very new. It's actually very ancient, and it's just you choosing that. And so this platform was based on seeing the need around the world of just understanding Hawaii better. I didn't see a lot of our people choosing to be in that route. I guess you can call it the influencer archetype of an educator, of like providing information that brings about truth in a perspective that is inviting and that is embracing and that is also inclusive and not so aggressive and exclusive in how we think. I really seen a big need for that. And to doing TikTok, doing Instagram, and I've been doing Instagram since it started pretty much. But when Instagram came out, I was in my stage of bodybuilding. I was still speaking professionally at schools, to kind of build up a speaking portfolio. And I was doing that on a consistent basis. And then I put that all to the side after I built a pretty good page, because I just needed to start fresh. And in that, I asked myself, if we're going to do a rebranding of who I am in the world, I want to try to make sure, which I think this is very important information for a lot of people who are building a personal brand on these platforms, that we want to try to be as authentic to ourselves as possible. We've all met people who have built a big platform, and then you meet them in person and they're a completely different person, and you're kind of confused on where does that fit. And then you meet that person that you once put on a pedestal, and you don't have respect for them anymore because of on how they interacted with you in person. And so I've learned the really trick is to identify what most is in alignment to the authenticity of your soul, and to make sure that your communication across all platforms is in alignment to that. Yeah. So that once you invest in building a brand, you don't got to change it halfway through because you're in another stage of who you're becoming. And so it's like, try do your best to identify that. And so I asked myself, really, what am I at the ending of the day, really, before anything? Hey, bro, you know, I'm 100% an offspring and a byproduct of spirit and source first. But when I came to this planet, I've been blessed to be in a body that is Kanaka Maoli. And in being blessed to be a son of Oahu, I come from Oahu, and although my my deep lines of my kupuna is connected to every island, like a majority of our Kanaka. I grew up on Oahu. All of my ohana is on Oahu. And if I had to choose an island that is my home, I could maybe move Maui one day, but my home will always be Oahu. I come from this Mokupuni. I just seen it fit, and I prayed on it, and Aku was like, yeah, mabara, Sana Oahu Kanaka. But it's a kuleana to hold and to carry as well, because to choose to put that on me, that means that on how I carry myself, how I treat our people, how I position myself and what I share, it has to uphold the spirit and the mana that is in what I'm positioning myself as. I gotta uphold that mana, which I've been told, expectations are great because it reveals to you who you are. You can either choose to rise to the standard or you can fall to the standard. And so I was raised to rise, only rise. So I'm thankful for that. So, I give thanks to my mom like that.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
you said so many things in so many different places I want to take this, and one of those things, you said when you remembered who you are, you realized that it was actually ancient.
Mm.
And so this aspect and the word that comes through, I mean, there's two main words that I really think of in this kuleana, but also this kanaka, and so this aspect of what was it like to reconnect with your heritage, your culture, and how did that maybe fortify whether it's your message or the way that you show up in the world?
Yes, brother, beautiful, beautiful. As a lot of our Kanaka, as all of our Kanaka, we have all endured a very long process of, I guess you can say, oppression because of the history of Americanization in Hawaii. I do not blame America, but it is America who is responsible. Yeah. But I don't blame because it's our personal own responsibility to choose our path. Yeah, even with what we were given. And so, as a lot of our Kanaka, we find ourselves in that place of in betweenness. Where do we fit? Am I Hawaiian enough? What does it mean to be Hawaiian? What are the pre-requirements that is needed? If I'm a Kanaka that is light skinned and everybody sees me more so Portuguese instead of Hawaiian, how then am I able to reconnect with the core truth of who I am as a Kanaka Hawaii? Those things. I'm pretty stoked. I have been blessed with nice brown skin. It's hard to mistake me as not being Hawaiian. I think in Hawaii at least. You go California, baga I Mexican. I go Florida, New Jersey, I Dominican. All kind, yeah. But yeah, I guess I can blend in. I go India, I become Indian.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
you
Same.
know, to just answer that, brother, it was like, as a lot of us who are interested in the discovery of ourselves, I hope it's a lot of us. In our educational system, it doesn't promote a discovery and an actualization of the self, right? And so a lot of us aren't able to access the process that needs to be undergone in order to discover our true potential until we have a spiritual awakening, until there's a massive awakening. And we then realize that we've been trapped in this matrix and then we're all over the place and we don't know where we're going. So we start from what we know at baseline. Yeah, we try to clear every idea that we have of ourselves and
Hmm.
to be completely cleansed and cleared and then renewed and restored. And so that was the process I went through, brother, that I was not afraid to be my fullness at every stage that I was at, which in current day on social media, there's some pushback and resistance of people bringing up all of my old videos and like things that had been put out there before, and with a lot of prejudice, a lot of prejudgment on like who I was like 8 to 10 years ago. I've evolved as I believe everybody should, because if we don't, we're gonna be stuck. But in the core of who I was, if you ask anybody that has ever spent time with me for a long time, the heart and the core of who I am has always remained,
Hmm.
you know. But it was the process. I put it like this, my brother, is that I learned early on to look everywhere on the outside for who I was, because you can't blame anything, but when you look at things with the system, that's how the system operates. The cars and the money and the power and the fame and all these things you try to look for to help you to be secure in your identity. And that works for people that have no culture, because that becomes a big part of a person's life if they grow up in the mainstream American culture, because the American culture is cultureless, but it built its culture around business, around military, and around, I guess you can say, a democracy. They built this culture around those three things. And then you can maybe add in at the foundation the church and Christianity. So a lot of the roots of American culture is based on Christianity, on capitalism. But in its root, if you look at the history, it's also built on colonial oppression. And so when we aren't in our identity, our indigeneity, we then lose our mana. And this is what the entire system does to you. Is it anybody's fault? Yeah, that's just what the system is. It's a Roman system that is brought into modern day that does not want cultures to thrive. Because when cultures thrive, people thrive. When people thrive, people have power. And when people have power in big mass numbers, they can't be controlled. And so I was learning that, brother. I was in that process of trying to identify where does this all go? And it led me back to square one, my brother, which was Hawaiian, you and Kanaka. That's the one thing nobody can take from you. And that's the one thing that you never choose. You never choose to be Hawaiian. You were blessed to be Hawaiian. So see it like that. Embrace being Kanaka and watch everything flourish. And, I just put a video out today on Instagram about a podcast interview. And I stated inside there that once a Hawaiian chooses Hawaii, then he chooses himself. Because us as Kanaka and Hawaii can never be apart. So when you choose to be Kanaka, you choose to be Hawaii, you're choosing who you really are instead of a version of who you think you should be for the world. When you choose being Hawaiian, you then become an asset to the world because the world needs more people who have the mana of Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
And so me realizing that through an awakening process of understanding history, of understanding who I come from, of like understanding Ike Hawaii, aspects of Hawaiian understanding that I was never introduced at a very young age, but it inherently lived in me. I just needed to plant the seeds again or to water the seeds that was in the countertops of my soul and not in the soil of my heart. It was just sitting on the countertop. It wasn't doing anything. Yeah. I had to choose to put that seed into the aina and watch how all of the mana just flourishes and becomes abundant. And that begins with identifying what was already given to you, my brother. And that was being Hawaiian. And like how it's not like in our parents' generation, my brother, I talked to my two parents about this. My parents' generation, it was a common thing on how people thought that being Hawaiian, speaking Hawaiian was not an asset to Hawaiian society.
Mm.
It was not an asset. You cannot talk Hawaiian and expect to actually prosper and thrive. There's no use. There's no use. Because that's what was taught to them in their parents' generation, even heavier. And then, you know, you head into the space and generation of my tutu, I like who speak Olelo first time my granny, Papa Kolea, Hali'iwa girl, she manaleo oya, speak Hawaiian first. But in her education, she was raised with that idea that I can't talk Hawaiian at home and only my kupuna, but when we go out in public, Hawaiian is not accepted. It's frowned upon. And that puts then a pin into how we as Kanaka see ourselves and see the importance of our thought and see, if I look in the mirror, am I enough if the outside world sees me as not enough? And that's the stuff that lives in the undercurrent of our spirit that we are not even aware of because it's not even in the subconscious. It's past the subconscious. It's in our field. And then we're raised in the environment that reinforces that thought. So you have to undo all of that. I tell my mom, like, if I was, if any kid in my Ohana supposed to go to, speak Hawaiian language, Hawaiian immersion school, should have been me. And my mom was like, son, I only know that now. Like I didn't know that back then. Like I truly didn't know, and I'm sorry, you
Mm.
know. And so that I feel for it, bro. Because how can our parents, help to empower our kiki if they didn't know any better? Because that's how they were raised, bro. Fuck.
Mm-hmm.
You just gotta roll with the punches, my brother.
Mm-hmm.
And you gotta choose to put on the malo, my brother. Put on the malo and drink the ava. Drink them. Eat the kalo. Do what you gotta do. And do not be afraid. You
Mm.
know, our kupuna were not afraid. Our
Mm.
kupuna take on the long journeys to Tahiti.
Mm.
But we make sure we're prepared. But there's a risk when we get on that va'a and we're going to Tahiti. There's the risk we are not going to return to our family, and we have to be willing to take that risk.
Mm,
and to go for it,
mm,
and it's a metaphor for life, my man.
mhm,
It's a metaphor for life, bro. And so, yeah, bro, mahalo to my kupuna.
mm, mhm. Yeah. Ooh, man, so much there.
You
And
know, fuck, I know my mom.
yeah, I mean,
There's a
I
lot to
want to I
unpack,
want to
man.
take a like there's two routes, and I'll let you pick which route we go. One is just to understand the distinction between Kanaka Maoli, local, uh, living on Hawaii,
Mm.
being Hawaiian, right? Like that whole conversation, and
All
I
the
think
label.
yeah, like all that. But then there's another one, and this is completely a different direction, but I'll let you pick. I think they're both vastly important, which is the word kupuna and the understanding of respecting our elders and tuning into their wisdom because we of society, especially in the American culture, hold little to no value on our elders. We call them old, not elder,
Oh, yes.
and there's a big difference there. And I'll let you pick which route we go because I could see value in either.
uh, I think we're gonna have to go with the kupuna route, my brother.
Mm-hmm.
Kupuna. It's important in Hua Olelo Hawaii in Hawaiian words that if we don't really know the word, we can, split the word in parts, yeah. We can oki, yeah. Cut them up a little bit in parts, yeah. And so when you look at ku, you see upright to actually stand tall.
Mm,
That's cool to stand. Puna is a puna way, a spring. So when you look at the word kupuna, you see upright spring.
mm,
But we call that elder or ancestor.
mhm,
Spring of what? Spring of wisdom, spring of understanding, a spring of truth, a spring of Hawaii. Yeah,
mm, mm.
and then you get the other one, which is the tutu. So tutu and kupuna not the same. Yeah. So in my understanding of what I've learned through Ike Hawaii and through talking to different kupunas, the understanding is that tutu is not is just tutu, because not all tutus are kupuna.
Right.
I met a lot of 65-year-old brothers that's still living with their mother. They no more a kupuna kind Ike Hawaii. And then I met people that is like half their age that get the wisdom on. There is the kupuna. And so what I heard from a couple conversations in kupuna spaces is that kupuna doesn't have to be age related. Most often it is age related because with age is wisdom, but not all the time. So you always had the tutus hanging out over there. Maybe the tutus playing the ukulele. Maybe the tutus can sing. Maybe the tutus can cook real good food. And maybe the tutus at times can give good life wisdom. Yeah, of just knowing what to do and what not to do. But the kupunas is the ones that keep the very deep kind mana
Mm,
that you no can really understand until you're ready. It's the kupunas who were put in Hawaiian society who had been the ones to teach and to train. The kupunas were the ones because the kupunas had the information, they had the ike, not only the information, but the ike, the ike hohonu, the very, very deep ike that can take one thing like kupuna and bring that bugger down into layers. Like it's not just elder ancestor, when you're looking at Aina, you're not just looking at Aina. It's layers of what things in the ecosystem and landscape is communicating to you, right? So there's people that can just farm, but there's the kahuna, who is the mahi'ai, the kahuna, who not only farm, the farming is the mechanics, but it's the kahuna who can touch the aina and can read everything in the flow of where things are placed. According to the Ike, they just have the vision. And that's the spiritual gifts that usually happen with that. Yeah. And so, yeah, to kind of reinforce that not all people that are elderly are wise, and not all wise people have to be elderly.
mm, mhm,
But I concur, my brother, that when we are talking about how things in the American culture has, it's so interesting how and it's so heartbreaking. And I heard this originally from a speech of Les Brown. I love Les Brown, he's one of the king of motivational speaking. And I was raised on Les Brown in high school, I came across Les Brown. And he would say, because we can't help being older, it doesn't mean we have to get old. And he would also say that it's a shame to see humans today have parents who pour their life, to help to inspire their kids and to put their hard work in to be a good parent and to raise their children. And when they get home, they age and get older, their kids put them in elderly homes, which in Hawaiian culture, we kind of see it as there was a practice called hanai in old Hawaii. It's called hanai, which also means to adopt, is hanai. But to hanai also means to feed. And in hanai, if you have a baby and they're just about to start eating food, you make sure you chew the food up for them first before you give them to them. That action is hanai. When a bird eats something and feeds it to its young, that's hanai. When a kupuna gets old and they cannot chew on the food, his mo'opuna, her person offspring, her child, but usually the mo'opuna, yeah, the kids, yeah, would eat the food and give it to their kupuna. That is also hanai. And that is the connection of genealogy, of mana. That as your kupuna had nourished you, you make sure you uphold the kula'ana you have to feed your kupuna. Mm. Yeah. And when we intake ava, had different, types of intaking ava, and had one approach to eating ava for the kupuna, where his mo'opuna would chew on the ava root. And when you chew on the ava root, you get all of the juice that begin to produce in your mouth. You get all the saliva. And he would lean his mouth like this and let all of the medicine in the spit go into the mouth of his kupuna. And the kupuna would be able to intake the healing spirit of the ava in the DNA of his mo'opuna. So they stay connected. That's the kind mana, yeah. So when I think about this kind of stuff, bruh, that's the kind of stuff. So when I think about people, cause who can't even be around their kupuna and to spend time with them, and it's really heartbreaking, and or if people had a bad relationship with their parents and then they have children and they don't allow their keiki to have a relationship to the keiki's kupuna. Mm-hmm. Because of that kuku. That in and of itself is kind of an initiator of intergenerational trauma. Mm-hmm. It's like a breaking of the line of mana that needs to be kept. Mm-hmm. And it needs to be kept even if there's issues in pilikia that come up, you need to resolve. You need to ho'oponopono to keep the line of your kupuna and your ohana only of light. Mm-hmm. Only of light. Yeah, my brother.
Whew. I love that. And it's so true. I have a real issue with the social media generational marketing that is like, just cut off your family. They're a bunch of narcissists. Just cut them off. And I tell my parents, and I'm in therapy and all sorts of things to heal these wounds and be like, look, it doesn't feel right for me to cut you out of my life. I suffer in doing so. Yeah, and if I were to ever have children, I don't want them to have a lack of relationship with you. I do think you need to maybe work on yourself a little bit, but I'm not here to tell you what to do. It definitely breaks my heart when I hear people be like, yeah, I haven't talked to my parents in 20 years or my brother or sister. I'm just like, oh, how is that?
How? Yeah,
how? How do you deal with that? And in American society, it's like, oh, well, we got legal weed and pornography and alcohol and overworking. It's like, oh, that's how you deal with it. You have to numb from the gap in your heart that your parents or your siblings aren't in your life. It's not natural.
Yeah, and to just add to that, bro, then people think that it's not going to kind of kick them in the ass if they have children. Right. Come on, it's the clear, that action is an example of what and who you are and how you conduct yourself with your ohana and you raise your keiki
Mm-hmm.
to think in this particular way, but the karma may bite you in your ass, and
Mm-hmm.
all of your kids are not gonna want to talk to you. How would you feel?
Right.
Feel bad, bro. That's why, bro. The human heart and the human consciousness needs more resonance.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I
Yeah, you gotta
agree.
pray for humanity, bro.
Yeah. 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 On that note, like I want to go back to the other question, which was distinguishing Kanaka and local and living. Like when I came here, so my friend that brought me here, my brother, he's local. He grew up in Oahu, and he's Filipino, and he made it very clear, like, look, you're not a local, you live on Hawaii.
Mm.
You know, I may
Yeah,
look
yeah,
like a local,
yeah.
and people
Yeah,
ask me all the time, like, "Oh, are you from here?" And as soon as I start talking, yo, brother, where you from? Where
yeah,
from? Like, oh yeah, you are not from here.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you just got here. When
yeah.
people say it, they'll say like, "Oh, you from here?" I'm like, "No, I just look like it," or I say, "Not in this lifetime."
Yeah, yeah,
I feel
yeah.
very confident that this has been a thing for me, but not in this lifetime apparently.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Follow me.
But can
Yeah,
you
yeah,
break
yeah.
that down for the listeners just to understand what those different distinctions and labels are?
Yes, yeah, I think it's very, very important because we kind of get lost in the fluff when we get trapped in the labels. You know, to preface, I believe everybody has the opportunity, um, if they so choose to evolve into becoming um, a keiki okaina, yeah, a person who is connected to Hawaii.
Hmm.
I believe everybody as a human, in one sense or the other, feels that deep, deep spiritual connection to the mana of Hawaii. And that's just baseline, right? Are you able to be a Kanaka Maoli? So we'll start there. As Kanaka Maoli, what is Kanaka Maoli? Ke? So, or in context, in today, people just say Kanaka. That's just context. Just because it's in Olelo, Hawaii, people don't really know what that means. But a Kanaka just means human. Okay? But to be an indigenous Hawaiian human, or Kanaka Maoli, or Kanaka Hawaii, or Kanaka Oiwi, a person who has the bloodline of our kupuna that come from Hawaii or that have been living in Hawaii for 1,500 plus years as a Kanaka, a Polynesian Hawaiian. Yeah, as we would say. I wouldn't even say the right word is Polynesian because that's like a Western framework too. But a person of Hawaii, right? In Koko. So it's pretty obvious. You cannot really choose if you're Kanaka or not, right? So, and that's okay, right? There is a handful of people who are extremely blessed on this planet, and I think a majority of them are Kanaka Maoli. Oh, Hawaii, what a blessing it is to be a Kanaka. Two, the next term is Kama'aina. So, if you break it up, it literally means a child of the land, Kama'aina, right? So you can look at this in many different ways. A Kama'aina in the Hawaiian perspective is like a kupa aina, which is an equivalent to a Kanaka Maoli, a kupa aina. We come from this land, right? So you cannot really choose to be an offspring and a child of Hawaii if you don't have the koko, because it's just not in there. Understand? Okay. On the other hand, with the like state of Hawaii culture, a kama'aina is if you've been living in Hawaii, I think for about maybe 8 to 10 years, maybe you consider it to be kama'aina or whatnot. Which I think that's a very kind of like a linear kind of haole way to look at it. And then you can look at the spiritual aspect of it. As humans, if you are a person who has a connection to land, a deep spiritual heart connection to place, and you understand the Aina, even if it's not Ka'aina Hawaii, right? It can be Ka'aina Missouri. It can be Aina Arkansas, it can be Aina Arizona, wherever you are earthbound in its earthbound body. If you have the ability to know how to connect to your space, to your place, then eventually you begin to evolve in the relationship you have to that place. And you can then feel that the space and the land begins to almost hanai you and have that invitation to almost explore deeper in that place. And so as it correlates to Hawaii in that spiritual perspective, if you learn about the aina of Hawaii, which then integrates you into the culture of Hawaii, into Hawaiian understanding, Hawaiian philosophy, how we see the land, how we connect to the spirit and deity that is embraced in aina. Then you begin to become like inherently you evolve to feeling a kuleana, a responsibility to the land. That is when you can say almost spiritually you become kama'aina. Yeah. But I'm very careful with using these labels, if it's not being explained in this manner, because you got to have the context. And then if you want to go towards Hawaiian, okay, in this next term, Hawaiian. Hawaiian is not a Hawaiian term. Yeah. So people say this is Hawaii, so the people they have kind of a tendency to pronounce it with a V, Hawaiian. Yeah, but no, but Hawaiian is not a Hawaiian term. It is an English word. Yeah, it was introduced. And all Hawaiian means is Hawaiian national. Hawaiian national, you say Hawaiian, right? And so the ethnicity, he Kanaka Maoli, yeah, but living in the country of the Hawaiian kingdom, you would be Hawaiian. Have there be Hawaiian Portuguese, Hawaiian Chinese, Hawaiian Puerto Rican, Hawaiian African, Hawaiian American, Hawaiian British. You got all of this, but it's a part of our understanding of how the people in the Hawaiian kingdom are identified as Hawaiian national, easy. So when you look at it from that perspective, it's a legal term, not an ethnic term. But we grew up in Hawaii having the correlation between Hawaiian being equivalent to the ethnicity of Kanaka Maoli. So when we say like Hawaiian, we saying Kanaka, but the terms originally is not the same. But through our cultural evolution, through statehood and all of these different things that took place in Hawaiian political history, we just have adapted because of our need for identity. That these words, being Hawaiian, is being Hawaiian. I'm Hawaiian blood. But the word Hawaiian is not correlated politically originally to the blood. Right? So we got this confusion, right? So this is why I gotta understand. I have to communicate this with context. Because being Kanaka is the bloodline, but being Hawaiian is a nationality. And when you look at what was needed to become a Hawaiian national, right, in the Hawaiian kingdom, it's like a person needs to learn how to speak Olelo Hawaii, because the Hawaiian language is not just our cultural language, it's our business language, it's our country's language. In commerce, everybody spoke Olelo Hawaii, not English, right? And then you see like Hawaiian culture. What do you gotta know baseline in order to become an American citizen? You have to know the Constitution. You can't be an immigrant and then become an American citizen and not know the law. Yeah. You have to know the Star Spangled Banner. You have to know the national anthem. You need to know these things because becoming an American citizen requires you to uphold American culture, what has been developed. You cannot claim another thing when you choose to become an American citizen. That's equivalent to being Hawaii. Yeah, if you look at it in the Hawaiian kingdom aspect, right? But today the connotation is completely different. And that's okay. So we gotta decipher, what do we really mean when we're saying like, what's a Hawaii? Yeah. In today's world, I see my Kanaka, I was like, oh, Hawaii. We know what we mean. But if I see one Haole Bara and I also go like, Hawaii, he may think I calling him like, oh, I Hawaii. But this is just me like expressing. I just expressing Hawaii. You know, it's like I just calling you, brother. But even like calling you in brother is like I calling you Hawaii. Because that's just how we do it.
Hmm.
But I'm not saying you now get the permission to call yourself Hawaii.
Right.
I get the permission to call you Hawaii, but you cannot call them yourself. Kind of like that, kind of like that, right? And so in current day, I do not say anybody is just able to become Hawaiian just because, right? Like we as Kanaka, we can tell the brothers that is not Kanaka Maoli, but very much so live Hawaii.
Yeah.
Yeah, they understand culture. They speak Olelo. They have Hawaiian philosophy. They farm. They're in Hawaiian sporting stuff. They're coexisting within Kanaka. Yeah, they're coexisting. And so, hey, are we gonna say that this Haole brother that has lived here for maybe only 15 plus years, but he can Olelo, he learning Hawaiian stuff, he farming, that this guy is not like holding and upholding the spirit of Hawaii and this body is not like Hawaiian? Like, what? It depends on the person, bro.
Hmm.
I know plenty of my brothers who non-Kanaka who's like more involved in Ike Hawaii, Olelo Hawaii, Kamo'omeheu Hawaii than many of my Kanakas that I know.
Hmm.
Yeah? And so who is to say, right? I hope that these brothers can inspire the real Kanakas who have koko
Hmm.
to ho'i kapiko, to return to the center of
Hmm.
truth, which is Hawaii. But are we going to push them to the side and dismiss them? I don't think that's appropriate too. So this is why the grounds are very, very sensitive.
Hmm.
You kind of just gotta know it.
Yeah, I just defer to whatever anybody's saying. I'm like, okay, tell me. I'm not here to pretend like I know.
Yeah, yeah. And to be, it is okay to not be any of those and to just be living in Hawaii.
Hmm.
But even when you're choosing to be a quote unquote resident of Hawaii, being a resident, even though people may not think so, because this is not how it is in America.
Hmm.
Everybody has freedom of choice. You can just choose to live anywhere, do whatever you want, and be protected through rights. That's
Hmm.
the same thing in Hawaii, but there is a pre understanding that everybody needs to have if you're going to choose to be a resident in Hawaii and do it with pono.
Hmm.
Because you
Hmm.
can be a person that's living in Hawaii that is not pono,
Hmm.
and you are becoming an invasive species like an albizia.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Let's
Uh,
talk about that. Tell me about living. That was one of the questions I had for you. Is what does it mean to live pono in Hawaii?
living pono. So when we're looking at living pono, which I have a course I just had reintroduced
Hmm.
uh previous name, the kind of Pono Cellular course. I think that was kind of unsettling for a lot of our people, because it's like a paradox. They say you cannot be both, you know, a person that lives Pono and being kind of like a settler, but I think that's semantics. All
It's
semantics.
marketing.
Yeah, yeah, Mark. All right, Polole. Yeah. So this next course is going to be called Live Pono.
Hmm.
Um, and it's going to be all revised in comparison to the Pawn Cellular course, really, really putting focus on the practicality of what it looks like to be in Live Pono. And what that looks like to us as Kanaka, and I only speak for myself and the things that I've experienced in my ohana, is you do what is right.
Hmm.
You do what is right. But how can you do what is right if you don't know what right looks like in a given situation? So,
Hmm.
what that requires of you, if you are going to act and do what is right, is you need to know context. You need to know context. Yeah, the context in the state of California right now is not the same as the context of what is happening in Hawaii. You need to know context.
Hmm.
You have cultural context, economic context, historical context, and political context. So these are all important pieces of the puzzle that a person needs to have in order to know what it actually is to live pono. Because you may move to Hawaii on whatever island, you can isolate yourself and you can be just using Hawaii as a backdrop of having a good experience of life with no connection to the reality of what Hawaii is.
Hmm.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
in our people and in our culture. And you can isolate yourself. Many have done that.
Mm-hmm.
They just isolate themselves. They just want to live in Hawaii, but they don't want anything to do with what Hawaii really, really is, because it's not very, all the time, it's not comfortable. And
Mm-hmm.
so people don't even want to engage because they already feel at a disadvantage. This is why education is important. You need to know. I always say people knew better, they would do better, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So have grace. But once people know better, they are bound to the need to do better. They're bound to it. Yeah, because you cannot claim ignorance once you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so in a practical sense, it could look like you just start at the foundation. And I encourage people to explore Olelo Hawaii and Mo'olelo Hawaii. Learn language, because the language, the Olelo, is going to access you to Hawaiian worldview.
Mm-hmm.
And Hawaiian worldview is then what's going to kind of help the individual to get access into the gates of what they need to then do. Because if you're approaching a problem that is Hawaiian with an American worldview, it's not going to mix, it's not going to match. Because there are things that are Hawaiian that requires a Hawaiian worldview to deal with it accordingly. You know, example, iwi kupuna. We've been dealing with iwi kupuna, the bones of our kupuna being uprooted for so long because of construction projects, building resorts, all this stuff. In the American worldview, they're just bones. We can relocate them. In the Hawaiian worldview, our bones are our mana of our kupuna. You do not disturb them.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't expose them to the light. You do
Mm-hmm.
not do that. That's not what it's about in our practice. So you can see how there can be a clash if you have people who are working on an American development and Hawaiians who are trying to protect the iwi, and you have this clash. I feel it's a very easy thing to understand if the American people were educated on the Hawaiian worldview in a way that they can fully understand and not in a protesty, aggressive way that is pushing against them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Before we push against, let's sit.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk story. I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
help you to understand how important it is to us as Kanaka to protect our ancestors. This is what has happened. Here's what's going on. And I understand that you building this, there's a bottom line you have to meet. I
Mm-hmm.
understand. But this is where we as Kanaka, we will draw the line. So this is the things that are non-compromisable.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if we can set the stage for that, then we can move forward knowing that these are things we're not going to compromise. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And if we need to, I will lay on the ground and the bulldozer is going to have to run me over
Mm-hmm.
if we need to. Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's been the story of our people,
Mm-hmm.
with this whole history of Americanization. And so we need to help people to just have basic understanding so they can have basic right responsibility in doing what is pono.
Mm-hmm.
Simple, bro. And I've had people in my course that had learned in the course that they don't belong in Hawaii. They have to go back home. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I've had people in the course who moved to Hawaii because of work. They kind of hated their job and they quit, and they had then had opportunities to try to serve the community in a place that helps Hawaiian culture to expand and prosper more.
Mm-hmm.
And they had opportunities for that. And they reached out to me as their kumu to try to help them along on how to conduct themselves in doing this job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's worked, and they've been in the job for a year, 2 years already, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and they're contributing, right? So that's the ways that people can apply their gifts in helping advocating for us as Hawaiians heading forward,
Mm-hmm.
not stagnated or causing resistance, like helping the cause move forward, right? And that's baseline, bro. But then understanding history is very, very important. You're gonna grow in the mo'olelo, and then just understanding your place, right? Hey, bro, if you live in Ka'anapali, Maui, if you live on the outskirts of Lahaina, you should know the full back and forth history of your vahipana. You should know the history of your place. You
Mm-hmm.
should know what is the streams that is in your place, the springs in your place, the important areas of your place, the name of the wind and the rain of your place. You
Mm-hmm.
should know all of those things so that you can be proper relationship with your place.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's the thing that people are like, where the hell do I start? I don't even know where to even look for that. Well, that's why I created this space to learn in my online course. Yeah, I give a lot of free education on social media. But if
Mm-hmm.
you want to go deep, to this next stage of just understanding Hawaii, then I create a space that you can explore that, and I give it in a curriculum where you have the pathway, and all you got to do is walk. I give you all the resources, everything, and all you need to do is walk. And then
Mm-hmm.
you come out of the course and you know the names of the winds, the rains, the peaks of the mountains of the like space you live in, the people that are correlated with those places, so that you can now know, like, you're not in the darkness anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You now know these things, and so therefore when you engage with Hawaiians and you are questioned, you can know that these are the things that I know about this space, and but I'm here to learn. I'm a humble student. I'm not here to cause harm. I want to help, but I did the homework already to this point to be equipped to then to continue on. Yeah. If I'm allowed to. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the conduct and the code that people need to learn when we're dealing with Kanaka. Yeah, my brother.
I love it. I love it. I spend a lot of time at different coffee shops around the island, and a lot of the aunties and tutus will come and listen to the music, and just to talk to them about talk story about what it was like, 30, 50, 70 years ago. And it's like, I could sit here all day. Like,
Yeah.
and no one's gonna tell me like, oh, this is gonna affect my business. This has to do with life, which is business, like, and it's a treat and a blessing to get to be invited into those spaces. And every time I get invited to a barbecue, I'm just like, oh my God, I feel so blessed. Like,
Yeah,
not
so
only the
blessed,
food, but
God.
like just to be invited into their ohana, into their space. And I'm like, wow, this
Yeah,
is
but good
so
stuff,
cool.
my brother. Yeah,
It's
but
so cool.
brother, this is because you have a good heart, my man. If anything we can recognize as Kanaka
Mm,
is people who have the mana, people
mm,
who have the heart.
yeah.
Yeah, 'cause we are a people of the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm,
If you really look at like people around the world in different cultures, you can say Asia, they're really people of the head.
mm-hmm.
There's like a lot of intellectualism, a lot of innovation, all that stuff, right? If you look at the West, we're kind of people of the root. If you look at the people of the West, it's like really, really root based.
Mm-hmm.
There's like a lot of pursuing, a lot of ambition, a lot
Mm-hmm.
of sexual amplification,
Mm-hmm.
all of that stuff rooted. And
Mm-hmm.
then if you look at people of the Pacific, you really look at people of the heart.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's that small little thing that was the whole Ailona's in the story, the like storytelling aspect, of maybe the biggest animated movie in our generation is on our Polynesian culture. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Away, away. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, away,
Mm-hmm.
away. In the story of in the whole movie, they're like speaking about it, the heart of Tefiti, of Moana, her having to go to retrieve the heart of the land.
Mm-hmm.
But the heart of Tefiti, right? That's because our people are the people of the heart, my brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that only when we restore our heart
Mm-hmm.
is everything able to prosper and flourish again. And when
Mm-hmm.
our heart is restored of the land, the
Mm-hmm.
heart of our people are restored, and the
Mm-hmm.
heart of humanity and how we serve is restored.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that speaks, like for me, I watched that movie. I was like, they're like speaking about our people, bro. I've been around the world as you probably have as well. I've met a lot of great people. The closest people, which is people of the Pacific that I came across, was people in the Philippines and Indonesia. you know, they're still Pacific Ocean, my brother.
Mm-hmm.
They actually still in the vast expanse of yeah, they're East Asian, but they're still in the vast expanse of our Moana Nui Akea. Yeah. Because it seems like this mana of the Moana, of the Pacific, this mana almost brings about this heart essence that you can
Mm-hmm.
find only in this part of the world, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And we get them. So anytime we see people, no matter who we are, bro, I go New Jersey, I go anywhere, I can see the heart. I can see the heart. Even before the person can be thinking and one smart person, but I can resonate if they get this man. They can be up here, but is up here in correlation to their heart center.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not, that's what oftentimes brings division, because it's the heart people that push for unity.
Mm-hmm.
It's the heart people.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect segue into the next question. You know, you mentioned the term haole earlier, and I didn't know what it meant. And once I learned what it meant, it was like I was laughable. And just the
Yeah.
sense of like what, you know, and as we breathe into this space, right? And so what does aloha mean to you? And then putting that in the context of also the haole and what it means to live without it.
You know, in the spirit of aloha, we can define it as just baseline love. But what kind love, you know? In Greek, there's many kinds of different loves, because on how I love my pizza and how I love my dog is not how I love my person that I love. Yeah, there's all different kinds of love. How I define aloha is connected to this understanding of, it's in the creation stories of a majority of people where the spirit of God, the like spirit of the source breathed itself into the earth suit. And so the human being now living with the spirit of God. Yeah. That action, aloha, that action, right? And in connection to that, we can say there's unconditional love.
Mm.
There is compassion. There is empathy. There is the kind of love that brings life, not death, that uplifts, that promotes, that helps to expand and to cultivate the purest essence of that person, but also of everything around them. So, in that thought, I regard aloha as only possible in a reciprocal relationship. Reciprocal. Because real aloha is reciprocal. But you cannot control how it's received and how it's reciprocated to you.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot control that. So you can only be in control of your aloha, on what you give. But the entirety of aloha, you can see it in a good Hawaiian family, or in any good family who loves each other, who's present for each other, and who does things on behalf of the ohana. If you come, if you come to Oahu, you let me know, but we have something happening with my ohana. I bring you by, my brother, because me and my cousins, me and my aunties and my uncles and my cousin guys, we get such a strong bond as one ohana that I've been a part of many families, seeing people, come together, I get a very unique ohana. Our style of aloha is very unique, and that's all because of my wow. It's because of my granny, and and her husband, Papa Di Freitas. Because of my granny, though, because of my granny, how she loved. It's the kind where, baby, if you ever need anything, you always get one house to come to. That's aloha, bro.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my granny, bro. you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we like talking about the opposite, yeah, it would be howling. Kind of. It's layered in meaning. Yeah. And throughout history, there's been a lot of interpretations of this word haole. Haole at baseline means a thing that is not of Hawaii, a foreign thing. Person, plant, take it as like, if you take it a step further, way of thinking, approach to life.
Mm-hmm.
There is an approach to life that is inherently Hawaiian. Everything else is haole.
Mm.
It's like the Jews and Gentiles.
Mm.
You either get one or the other, my brother. And then here's this crazy Hawaiian, who is like Paul, I guess, who tried to bridge the gap, who fucking heads on into the holiday world, helping everybody to live aloha. I try to do that as best as I can. I think it's one of the hardest things that a Kanaka could do, is to head out into the world and people that are exploiting Hawaii, and to help them to ho'opono, to ho'oponopono Kanaka, so that we're aligned, in the truth, and not just of this concept of Hawaii that you receive from a magazine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, One good brother of mine, he would always say, and on every podcast, I usually say this, as Christians believe to get access to the Father, you have to go through Jesus.
Mm.
It's the same that if you want to get access to the heart of Hawaii, you have to go through Kanaka. You cannot get it outside. You
Mm.
cannot. You cannot. You have to go through a person that lives, breathes, and thinks Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way you're gonna get access to the true essence of what Hawaii is.
Mm.
But there is other mo'olelos, about haole and about people usually saying like ha'ole,
Mm-hmm.
being absent of breath. Ha'ole, a'ole, being no or none.
Mm-hmm.
Ha'ole. But that's not an accurate word, ika olelo Hawaii. But when we can see the thinking behind, if we would say ha space ole,
Mm-hmm.
not one word, like ha space ole. If we can think deeper on what the ha is, the spirit, the mana. I heard on Mo'olelo that in old Hawaii and in different parts of Polynesia that you wouldn't exchange ha with everybody. You would only exchange ha with kin, with ohana. That is because you guys is of one breath.
Mm-hmm.
So you exchange that one breath. Yeah, the same mana. You wouldn't always head to one village and immediately honey somebody like how we do today.
Mm-hmm.
We head to Ilani Palace and on big event or something, and all the Hawaiians, we all exchanging ha with each other.
Mm-hmm.
You wouldn't necessarily do that in old Hawaii. And the reason is because I don't know you, who you come from, who you. So the practice for Kanakas is when we go to one village, we would have to state our mo'okuauhau, our genealogy, our place, where we come from, and then the chief who's receiving you, the chief or the konohiki or whoever it is receiving you, he would hear a couple of names inside his chant. You would say, "Hey, para, you related to this Hawaiian? Oh, that's my uncle Hawaiian. That's my uncle Ali." He go, "Huh? Bruh, I grew up with him down Punasai. Come on, Hawaiian. You honey. You get pilina. You see that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just like I just can choose to bring you into Ohana when I don't know you. But this has happened to me, Hawaiian, like when I talking to people, and because I got social media, people like they kind of hesitant sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
kind of hesitant because they see a persona of me on social media and they're not really too sure on how to engage with me. And they go, "Parang, hey, ba, what's your last name, hoy? Oh, ba, McShane, ba, Papakolea. Papakolea, McShane. Oh, who's out to you? Oh, that's my gramps. Boy, come on. They just know, you come from good Ohana.
Mm-hmm.
I go, oh, thank you, uncle. Yeah, and then that's how you build the pilina, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then in that point, you get the aloha.
Mm-hmm.
You get the aloha.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But previous to that, if you're talking about like how ole is, like it's not that a person has no breath, but a person has a different breath,
Mm-hmm.
a different way of thinking, a different way of engaging. We
Mm-hmm.
know more handshakes in old Hawaii. That's haole.
Mm-hmm.
But the handshakes is interesting, it had originated in the Wild West. You know, the handshake was to prove that I had no gun,
Right.
so peaceful, you know. But you only doing one hand. Eh. If you still wanted to and you playing one trick on another brother, you can pull out the fucking pistol from the other side and blast them,
Mm-hmm.
right? But that handshake is an extension of trust
Mm-hmm.
because initially, because of what was happening in the Wild Wild West, you couldn't trust nobody. So that's like the same thing when we talking about like exchanging our mana, our
Mm-hmm.
aloha. And maybe this, there's Kanakas hearing this, maybe this is a different approach to thought that you've maybe heard in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I just invite thinking in many different ways, not just that's how our kupunas thought. Yeah, it's a kuana ike kind of thing, yeah, to take an approach of like a makavalu, having eight eyes, kind of thinking spherically, instead of linearly.
Mm-hmm.
Like being able to see many different perspectives of the same thing and communicating it as one.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm.
think it's a craft that comes over years of developing through ancient wisdom.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
Yeah.
On that note, you talked a little bit earlier about, in this idea of living aloha, and it's a reciprocal thing, and you can't necessarily predetermine how it's going to be reciprocated. And so one of the questions I had is how do we, what does it look like to invite tourism to be more reciprocal? But I think that question has now changed because we can't be certain. What I'll say is the aloha has already been given. Like when people come to the islands, there's so much aloha being given to them. So I think the proper question is how do we invite tourists to bring more aloha forward from themselves?
I think it's one of the reasons why people love coming to Hawaii is because of that embrace in mana.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think it's one of the reasons why people get changed in Hawaii is because they never experienced that kind of embrace before where they came from. So it's important, as in Tutu's Hale, you come as you are. Yet asking yourself if my behavior is harmful.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you cannot distinguish that because harmful behavior here may be accepted behavior where they come from. It comes back down to education previous to coming. I'm kicking off our YouTube and I'm going to be doing long form,
Good.
and
Love
really
that.
diving deep into interviews with Kanakas
Mm-hmm.
about these issues,
Mm-hmm.
because there's no Hawaiian doing it right now, my brother.
Mm-mm.
And if you go on YouTube and look at Hawaii kind stuff, everybody who's doing it is people that are not from here.
Right. This is how you get the
Bah,
best vacation, and here's the places to go. And
yeah, and yeah, just a consumer trap.
mm-hmm.
But if you really want to be enriched, if you really want to leave Hawaii so changed and inspired that you can make a world of a difference where you come from,
Mm-hmm.
then this is the food to eat of.
Mm-hmm.
This is the real mana'ai.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the kind food that grants you mana.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. This is the stuff. And when, but hey, I get questioned about this all the time, like who who would give you the authority and permission to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And my answer is Kiakua and my kupuna. I can see what I'm doing, and if you cannot prove to me that what I'm doing is wrong with hard evidence, then all you're doing is condemning and just giving false opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody's entitled to that if they want. But when you look at the scale of tourism right now and the scale of people that are in Hawaii, having been military, professionally, whatever it is, you're literally seeing at a mass level almost an invasion of people coming in without no conscience that is connected to real Hawaii.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the Hawaii Tourism Authority is doing their best to promote good stuff. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
CNHA, they're doing their best. What they're not doing, all of these organizations are not doing, is they're not doing the hands-on stuff on social media.
Mm-hmm.
That's where everybody is like receiving all of their nourishment, all of their
Yeah.
education, their information.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing it. And so I'm trying to do my best to use my platform for good, positive change, bro, to
Mm-hmm.
bring about life. And so to answer you, bro, it's like again, education. I could be introducing a course soon. It's gonna be a very, very affordable one for tourism,
Mm-hmm.
on how to come here in a respectful way, having understanding of Hawaiian values, giving a list of Hawaiian organizations
Mm-hmm.
that you could reach out to,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, kind of understanding protocol. Like
Mm-hmm.
the first time, the thing you come to Hawaii,
Mm-hmm.
what you do in the Hawaiian way is you give first,
Mm-hmm.
and then you go experience.
Mm-hmm.
You don't just hop off the plane and you go right to the zip line.
Right.
Spend 2, 3 hours in Aina,
Mm-hmm.
do some work in the land,
Mm-hmm.
learn a little bit, give back, build your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can go play.
Mm-hmm.
Plenty places to go play. But
Mm-hmm.
there is a lot of work that needs to get done in Hawaii to move Hawaii forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I take the perspective as a Kanaka that why don't we use tourism
Mm-hmm.
as a leg of labor, of
Mm-hmm.
help
Mm-hmm.
to give and to rebuild our whole kind of agricultural industry.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how, to give people a culture experience, but they're in experiencing culture, they're helping to rebuild a new Hawaii.
100%.
I think it's fairly
100%.
simple to do if we have the right positioning,
Yeah.
you know. So we're in the process of doing that, bro.
I love that. And I saw some content you were putting out about that. And, one thing I got to experience over here on Maui was the Hawaiian Island Land Trust and, getting to do some volunteering with them and understanding the fishing ponds and how, we used to do this work and the different types of vegetation and why some of them aren't supposed to be there. Just like that whole thing. And for a couple hours of time, and the people there being so gracious to teach.
Yes,
It was really beautiful. And every time someone comes and asks how I can give back, that's one of the things I say. Spend time in the land, go to EO, put your feet on the land, and slow down. And I think there is definitely a gap there for a lot of people who want to come and give back and just don't know how. So I'd love to hear that you're doing that, and I will surely promote that when I see it come out.
absolutely, my brother. Absolutely.
Yeah. Elijah, thank you so much for the time and the wisdom and the opportunity to sit with you and hear these stories and yeah, just give some insight to people who are interested in coming here in a good way. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
hey, bro, I appreciate you, my brother. Yeah, hey, bro. Always here to serve, my man. If I come to Maui soon, which I think is gonna be in a few weeks, let's have some ava, my brother.
I would love that. I would love that.
Yeah.
That would be beautiful. Where can people find out more about you? I know the course isn't out yet, but it's coming soon. So just to plug, whether your website or your social media.
Yeah, if you go on social media, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, SON of Oahu, SONOFOAHU. If you go into the link in my bio, there is all of my information. We just launched our course for our pre-sale, which is right now. And it's gonna be for October. And so, hey, bro, if you wanna hop in the course, you let me know, brother.
Okay.
Hey, bro,
Got
I'll let you into the course, bro.
it. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
I love that, brother. And thank you. And we'll link all this stuff in the show notes. And so thank you again for the time. It's been
hey, bro,
really wonderful.
appreciate you, my man. Bye. Have a beautiful day. Peace and love to everybody, you and your family, and to all the listeners. May you be blessed. May you be highly favored, protected. May the spirit of aloha be in your heart always. To love one another, to love yourself, to love your place, and to love every aspect of life, the good, the bad, the peak and the valleys, to learn the lessons needed to be the best you can be in the world, and to give of yourself so that as you walk into the ancestral realm, you can say you left empty and laid everything on the line. Do
Mm.
good, do good, live aloha, be aloha, give aloha to people around you. Right.
Thank you, brother.
Have
Thank
a
you.
good day.
Thank you
I love
to
you,
the
mama.
listeners. Aloha.
Aloha.